They say strength is silent until someone you love gets hurt. She never fought back, never raised her voice, never even looked them in the eye. She was the quiet farm girl everyone overlooked, until one mistake changed everything. That afternoon, the bullies cornered her in the hallway laughing, recording, turning cruelty into entertainment. They left her bruised, broken, and tossed in the dirt like she didn't matter. When her brother, Jason, arrived moments later, he found her barely breathing, dust clinging to her hair, tears mixing with blood. He dropped to his knees beside her, his hands shaking with rage. And when he finally looked up, the bullies realized their fun was over. Before we continue, if you've been with us for a while, you know these stories aren't just about fights. They're about the moments that test who we really are, when silence can save or destroy. And if you're new here, welcome. Stick around till the end, because what Jason does next isn't just about revenge. It's about what it truly means to protect the ones you love. The small town of Elridge moved at the pace of dust and wind. Every morning, the same yellow school bus rolled past the same cracked fences, the same worn barns, and the same faces that knew everyone's business. It was a quiet place, the kind where whispers traveled faster than help ever did. And among all those faces was Emma Statham, the girl who never quite fit in. She was the kind of person who held her backpack close, who said sorry, even when she'd done nothing wrong, who'd rather draw in the back of her notebook than talk in the cafeteria. Her clothes were plain, her hair often tied up in a loose braid, and her eyes always down, not from weakness, but from habit. Years of trying not to be noticed had made her invisible. Her family lived miles out of town on a small patch of land, a weathered house, a few animals, and one old truck that coughed louder than it ran. Her brother Jason had bought the place for their parents years ago, back before the military, back before everything changed. But after their parents passed, Emma stayed behind. Jason, always between cities, carried his silence like armor. She never told him how bad school had gotten. Not because she didn't trust him, but because she knew how he was. Jasonstatham wasn't the kind of man who just let things go. It started small. A snicker when she walked into class. A whispered farmer girl in the hall. Then came the photos, her mud-stained boots, her lunch wrapped in foil, her thrifted clothes. Social media turned her into a joke, and jokes in a small town have a way of spreading faster than truth. At first, Emma tried to laugh it off. She told herself it didn't matter. But laughter can cut deeper than fists, and soon she couldn't look anyone in the eye. Then came Mason. Tall, loud, the kind of kid who thought cruelty was confidence. He led the group that trailed her between classes. They'd bump into her, knock her books down, ask if she'd milked the cows before class. It was never subtle, never private. And the teachers, they looked away. Nobody wanted to cross Mason's father, the man who owned half the town's farmland and funded the new gym. So Emma learned to endure, to shrink smaller every day. Until the afternoon, everything broke. It was late, the last bell had already rung. The halls were quiet except for the hum of lights and the squeak of sneakers on tile. Emma was at her locker, rearranging her things. She'd drawn a small picture and taped it inside, her parents' faces, smiling, standing by the barn. It reminded her who she was. She didn't hear them at first. Mason and his friends came in laughing, voices echoing down the corridor. They weren't supposed to be there, but bullies never needed permission. "Look who's still here," Mason grinned, walking closer. "Got detention, farm girl, or you just slow?" Emma turned, heart racing. "I'm just leaving." He leaned against the locker beside hers, close enough to smell his cheap cologne. "Relax, we're just talking. You're always so tense." His friend chuckled. "Maybe she's scared the tractor won't start." They laughed, that sharp, mocking kind of laughter that burns more than it echoes. Emma stepped back, clutching her notebook. "Please just let me go." But they didn't. One of them grabbed her arm. Another took her bag and emptied it on the floor, books, pens, a folded paper sketch of her parents. Mason picked it up, looked at it, then tore it clean in half. "Hey," she shouted, her voice breaking for the first time. "Give that back." He smirked. "Oh, she talks now." Before she could react, he shoved her shoulder. She fell against the lockers, pain bursting up her back. Her knees hit the tile. They laughed harder. Phones came out. The red recording light blinked. "Come on, give us that country cry," Mason said. "Let's make you famous." Tears welled in her eyes, not from pain, but from humiliation. She pressed her hand to the cold floor, trying to push herself up, but another foot kicked her bag aside. Then a door creaked open at the end of the hallway. Footsteps. "Hey," a teacher's voice shouted. "What's going on here?" The phones dropped, the laughter stopped. Mason turned, smiling wide. "Nothing, sir, just cleaning up." Emma tripped. The teacher frowned but didn't press. "Bell rang 10 minutes ago. All of you out now." They walked off, pretending innocence, leaving her there. Emma gathered her things in silence, tears mixing with the dirt on her cheek. She didn't go home right away. She sat behind the bleachers until the sun set, trying to stop shaking. By the time she reached the farmhouse, it was dark. Jason's truck was parked out front, headlights cutting through the fog. He'd come home early. "Hey, Em," he said as she walked in, still in her torn sleeve. "You okay?" She froze. Jason noticed everything, the tremble in her hand, the bruise near her collarbone. "What happened?" His voice shifted low, careful. Emma tried to hide her face. "It's nothing, just school stuff." He stepped closer. "That's not nothing. Who did this?" She shook her head. "Please, Jason, I just want to forget it." But forgetting wasn't something Jason knew how to do. He'd spent years learning to read silence in the army, in the field, in the eyes of men who pretended to be fine right before breaking. He saw that same silence in his sister now. And it scared him. That night he couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch, staring at the moonlit field, jaw tight, fists resting against his knees. He wasn't angry at her. He was angry at the world that made her afraid to speak. He'd always promised his parents he'd protect her. He'd failed once before, and he wasn't going to fail again. The next day, Emma didn't go to school. She said she felt sick. Jason didn't argue. He drove into town, parked outside the school gates, and waited. When the bell rang, the students spilled out laughing, shouting, phones in hand. He saw Mason immediately, loud, confident, pushing through the crowd like he owned it. Jason didn't move, he just watched. Watched how Mason nudged another kid out of the way. Watched how he laughed too loudly at his own jokes. Watched how every teacher looked the other way. Then he saw Emma's photo on Mason's phone. A screenshot from the night before, edited with a cruel caption. Jason's jaw clenched. That was the moment something in him shifted. He got out of the truck, walked straight toward Mason, and stopped a few feet away. "Nice phone," Jason said quietly. Mason turned, confused. Thanks." Jason's gaze didn't waver. "Delete it." "What?" Mason laughed. "Who even are you?" Jason took one step closer. "Her brother." The laughter stopped. "Look, man," Mason began, but Jason cut him off. "You think you're strong because you hurt someone smaller. Try picking on me instead." The hallway chatter stilled. A few students stopped to watch. Phones started recording again. Jason didn't raise his voice. He didn't touch him. He just looked him dead in the eyes, that calm, unshakable stare of someone who'd seen real danger, who didn't need to prove anything. And Mason, for the first time, couldn't speak. "Next time," Jason said, voice low but clear, "you think about how it feels to kick someone who's already down, because you're looking at what comes next if you ever touch her again." He turned and walked away, slow, controlled, leaving silence in his wake. But Mason wasn't the kind of kid to let things go. As Jason reached his truck, Mason hissed under his breath, "You can't scare me, old man." Jason stopped. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. "I'm not trying to," he said softly. "I'm trying to teach you." And with that he drove off, leaving Mason standing there, his friends whispering, unsure whether to laugh or stay quiet. That night Emma sat by the window, watching the lights from the barn fade into the distance. She didn't know exactly what Jason had done, but for the first time in weeks she felt safe enough to breathe. Still, something told her this wasn't over. Because bullies rarely learn through warnings, only consequences. And somewhere deep down, Jason knew that too. He just didn't know how soon those consequences would come knocking. The next morning broke heavy with fog, the kind that seemed to swallow sound, leaving the world quieter than usual. Jason was already awake, sitting on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the field stretch into the pale gray horizon. He hadn't slept much. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma bruised, shaking, holding herself together by a thread. He could handle his own pain, but hers, that was something else entirely. The guilt burned him from the inside. He'd been gone too long, caught up in the noise of the city and the weight of other people's problems. He thought Emma was safe out here, in the same quiet countryside where they'd grown up. But even in small towns, monsters wore familiar faces. When the phone rang, he almost ignored it. But then he saw the name, Officer Daniels, an old friend from his military days who now worked the local beat. "Jason," the voice came through, low and tired. "You might want to come down to the station." Jason's grip on the phone tightened. "Why?" "Video S going around the school. Your sister S in it." He didn't ask for details. He didn't need to. By the time he reached town, the video was everywhere, shared, mocked, remixed into some cruel inside joke. In a place where gossip traveled faster than truth, Emma had become entertainment. Jason parked outside the school and walked straight to the principal's office. The secretary tried to stop him. One look was enough. "Mr. Statham," the principal started, voice trembling as Jason stepped inside. "Where S. Mason?" The man hesitated. "Mr. Statham, please understand, we're handling this." Jason's jaw tightened. "No, you're hiding it." The principal's silence was answer enough. He turned and walked out without another word. He didn't go looking for permission. He went looking for justice. By afternoon, word had spread. Mason and his friends were hanging out behind the school gym, the same place Emma had been cornered days before. Jason's boots crunched on the gravel as he approached. He didn't rush. He didn't speak. He just walked until the laughter died down, and all that was left was the sound of his footsteps. Mason turned, smirking. "Oh, look who's back, the farmer's guard dog." His friends laughed, but not for long. Jason stopped a few feet away, his shadow stretching across the cracked pavement. "You think what you did was funny?" he asked quietly. Mason tilted his head, pretending to think. "Well, she made it easy. You should have seen her face." He didn't finish. Jason stepped forward so fast it made the boy stumble back. Not with violence, with presence. That quiet, controlled force that said everything words never could. "You ever speak about her like that again," Jason said, voice low and even, "and I'll make sure you never forget what real fear feels like." Mason tried to laugh it off. "You can't touch me, my dad." Jason cut him off again. "Your dad can't stop what's coming if you keep hurting people. You think I'm your problem. You haven't met consequence yet." One of Mason's friends mumbled, "He's crazy, man, let's just go." But Mason couldn't back down, not in front of an audience. He shoved Jason's chest, barely moving him an inch. "You think you scare me? You're just some washed-up soldier." Jason's eyes didn't change. They didn't need to. "No, I'm the reason you'll learn respect before life teaches it the hard way." Mason swung. It was sloppy, wild, all ego, no control. Jason didn't retaliate. He stepped aside, caught Mason's wrist midair and twisted, not enough to break, but enough to drop him to one knee. "You done?" Jason asked, calm as ever. Mason's friends froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Jason released him and took a step back. "You think being cruel makes you strong. Try carrying guilt someday, see how heavy that gets." He turned and walked away, leaving them in silence. At home, Emma was sitting by the window again, staring out at the field where the evening light stretched long shadows across the grass. Jason sat beside her, quiet at first. "You don't have to protect me," she said softly. "You've already done enough." Jason shook his head. "No, I didn't do enough soon enough." She looked at him then, the same eyes she'd had as a child, the same eyes he'd promised to protect. "They won't stop, Jason. They'll just find another way." He leaned back, sighing. "Then we stop being afraid." Emma frowned. "What do you mean?" "Fear is what they want," he said quietly. "Take that away and they lose." She didn't answer. She just leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time in weeks, she let herself rest. The next morning, something unexpected happened. The video, the one that had humiliated her, disappeared from every account that had posted it. No trace, no reposts, no comments. Just gone. Jason didn't say a word, but the look in his eyes said everything. When Emma asked what happened, he just smiled faintly. Let's just say, some people decided it wasn't worth keeping up. Days passed. The noise faded. Mason stopped showing up to school for a while. When he returned, he walked with his head down. Rumor had it his dad found out what he'd done and forced him to apologize, though no one knew the full story. Emma slowly started finding her footing again. She began sitting in the cafeteria, talking to a few classmates who'd once ignored her. People whispered less, laughed less. Sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's healing. Still, Jason knew she wasn't the same. He'd seen too much to believe wounds like that disappear easily. One evening he found her in the barn fixing a broken fence plank. She looked up when he entered. "It's easier to fix wood than people," she said quietly. He smiled sadly. "Maybe, but sometimes people just need someone who won't walk away." She nodded, eyes glistening. "You didn't." Jason crouched beside her, helping hold the board steady. "You're my sister, that's what I'm here for." They worked in silence for a while, the soft rhythm of the hammer echoing through the open air. Then in the distance, the sound of tires crunching on gravel, a car pulling up the drive. Jason turned, eyes narrowing. It was Mason, alone. He stepped out of his car, hands trembling slightly. The arrogance was gone. His voice cracked when he spoke. I came to say I'm sorry." Emma froze. Jason didn't move. Mason continued, voice low. "I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I just wanted to fit in. I didn't think." Jason's expression stayed unreadable. No one ever does. Mason looked at the ground. "I saw my sister crying last week. Someone called her names online. I wanted to hit them, and then I realized I became that person for you." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Emma stepped forward. "Just don't do it again," she said softly. Mason nodded, eyes wet. "I won't." He turned to leave. As his car disappeared down the road, Jason glanced at Emma. "You handled that better than I would have." She smiled faintly. "That's why we balance each other." He chuckled, "Guess so." Weeks later, the school held its annual charity fair, a small event, but important to the community. Emma volunteered to help set up, something she never would have done before. Jason came by to drop off supplies, staying out of sight, watching from a distance. He saw her laughing with others, handing out flyers, no longer hiding in the corners. And for the first time in a long time, he felt peace. As the sun dipped low, he walked to his truck. A teacher stopped him near the gate. "Mr. Statham," she said quietly, "I wanted to thank you. I don't know what you did, but things have changed around here. Those boys learned something they'll never forget." Jason gave a small nod. Sometimes the best lessons aren't taught in classrooms. He drove off, the fields glowing gold under the fading sun. That night Emma sat on the porch, watching the stars blink above the quiet fields. Jason joined her, handing her a mug of cocoa. "You ever wonder why bad people do what they do?" she asked softly. He thought for a moment, because no one stopped them soon enough. She nodded slowly, eyes distant. "You stopped them." Jason looked out into the dark horizon. "Maybe, but I'd rather the world learn to stop itself." They sat there in silence, two survivors of different wars, bound not by blood alone, but by the quiet understanding of pain and healing. And somewhere deep inside, Jason knew, this wasn't just about bullies or bruises. It was about what kind of person you become after the hurt. Strength wasn't about fists or fury. It was about standing back up, or standing beside someone who can't.